So in this video, I want to talk about volume 11 of So I'm a Spider, So What? And it's been a really long time since I've actually been reading the light novels. I read through volumes 1 through 10 quite a while ago. I read through them, and it was a great journey. It was really amazing, but at the time I was pretty much getting up to date on what the actual light novels had released, and this was the next one that was going to come out, so I took a bit of a break, but then kind of everything got crazy in my life, and of course I ended up only now really getting back to them. And I would definitely say this is one of those volumes where I noticed it was quite controversial, because I looked around online and saw some people's opinions on the volume, and there are some people that really like what the volume tries to do, and there are some people that really hate the volume and have said straight up they're just like, nah, they're just skipping it. And I can understand both perspectives, and that's the first thing I wanted to talk about before I get into the meat and potato of the volume itself, because it is one of those volumes where you could legitimately skip it and you will lose nothing of value. And I know that sounds harsh, and I know I'll get some hate comments for it, as I have throughout my other 1 through 10 volumes, but it's one of those where it's like, okay, what does it add to the overarching story? Well, it mostly just focuses on the hero and some other small components to it, like Podamus, Ariel, those kinds of characters, but very minor amount. Its main focus is the hero, which I don't think's bad, but I can definitely understand why people may not really care about the volume, because it is really just, it's just a side story volume. That's really all it comes down to. It's just focusing on a character that most people do not care about. So to me, when I started reading it, and I was like, okay, cool, you know, I don't mind reading about this hero, and then I was kind of like, okay, when are we getting into the good stuff? And that's when I realized, oh, this entire volume is focused on them for the most part, most of it, because there are some parts that are based on Ariel, Podamus, and all that. And once we got up to the Ariel part, my ears kind of peaked a little bit more, and I was a little bit more interested in the actual volume. It's not a bad volume. Again, as far as things go, it's well written, the story's interesting overall, it builds on the world, but I can understand why people would want to skip this volume. And that leads into the first thing, is that what the volume goes into is, what is a hero? At least that's what I kind of took from the volume, is that it really delved into the responsibilities of a hero and how people will try to use you. And that's one of the things I actually really like about So I'm a Spider, So What, is it does take a really grounded level on the imperfect nature of us as individuals, and especially how the hero tries to do the right thing but ends up actually putting other people's lives at risk in the pursuit of trying to save the innocent. But at the same time, is that the innocent, I know, it's a word that you could debate, are they really innocent? Because in themselves, these people, they look to the hero for protection, but they themselves won't even do anything to protect themselves. And I think that's kind of really stupid of them, because they're basically just going, well, I'm going to throw all my responsibility as a person individually and just throw it all on the hero, and if the hero fails, well, then I'm going to blame them. And it kind of reminds me a lot of real life right now, and how people are throwing responsibility of their own personal actions on other people or other entities like governments, and sitting there saying, well, I'll just leave all that responsibility to you and you deal with it. And then when things go wrong, they go, oh, well, it's all your fault. Or when those individual entities or people exploit that power, then it's like, well, you kind of put that upon yourself. And I think that's what this kind of part really kind of made me think about. I'm sure, you know, the volume makes other people think of different things, but for me, when I saw it, I thought of that in itself, is that people are very quick to throw away their own personal responsibilities, especially when they were going up to a village with the Phoenix, and they're like to this guy, they're like, no, you need to leave. This thing's going to burn the village down. And the person's just like, no, I don't want to leave. Like, I get the sentimental value on the house, but your life is more important than that. The memories that you hold in yourself with your wife is more important than losing it because, oh, your house, like, sure, the house is important, but you're willing to throw all of that away and your own life just because of that attached. To me, it was kind of like, you could tell that this person really wasn't thinking rationally. And I get that people can become attached to things, but to me, it's like, home is where you build it. And I get, you know, the wife and them built it together, but to me, the memories are more important than risking your life and others for a building. To me, it just seemed illogical. And that is what I think the volume tries to point out, because then the hero's like, all right, fine, we'll try and do something, and then ends up risking his own friend's life in the pursuit. And that's what I mean. It's like, these people look to the hero for all this protection, but at the same time, when things don't go the way they want, they then throw punches, kicks, slander them, and it's like, well, what do you expect? You're throwing all this responsibility on a small group of individuals to protect you all because you're all too lazy to take personal responsibility. And that's what frustrates me about that part of the story, but actually is really good, because it does draw out that emotion of being like, hey, this is what it's like to be a hero. And it shows in itself that true heroism in itself is dealing with these issues instead of this mindset of what I like to call hero complex, where people create an issue or create a villain so that they can pretend themselves to be a hero. I always had this kind of saying that villains don't need heroes, heroes need villains. And the reason why I've always believed that is because at the end of the day, to be a hero, you need a villain. And especially with this modern day mindset, but with a villain, you don't need a hero to be a villain. You just do bad things. That's the criteria to be a villain. You just do bad things. But as a hero, you have to fight some greater evil to become claimed as a hero. And that's kind of what it is, because even if this individual goes out there and does good deeds and tries and helps people, they're very quickly just thrown stones at when everything doesn't go right. And it's like, then they go, well, you're not the real hero. That's what I mean about being a hero, is you almost have to create a villain to be able to get that title. Now, of course, in this, you've got Ariel and all that, and that's how the hero works. Well, they're destined to defeat it, and they get this sword and all the rest. But just to me, that part of the volume was actually the most interesting part that I actually really did, in fact, enjoy. And especially with the political component to it as well, how people try to manipulate the hero and use them as like a piece on a chessboard to make them do what they want. And then, of course, they've got their own friends, and there's the relationships, the love interests, all of those different components I thought were just really awesome. And that's the whole thing with the sword, the friendship, the love, the death itself, and the hero being like, oh, you know, I'm gonna probably die and have to sacrifice my life. And then the friends are like, yeah, no, you shouldn't be doing that. Like, you should be trying to live. Like, especially when he's like, oh, I don't want to pursue this relationship because I'm probably gonna die and I don't want to leave them alone. It's like, well, think about the memories that you do make with them. They're gonna say, and it's like, oh, well, I don't want them to like be attached to me, and then I die. It's like, dude, they're waiting for you to reciprocate those feelings. By you just holding them out and not being honest about your feelings and also reciprocating them, you're basically just leading them on, which then in itself doesn't make you a hero, it just makes you a douche because you're leading them on. So it's that complexity of the hero trying to have these virtues and values that kind of contradict themselves, which is what I think is really good about the volume, because it shows that heroism in itself is not as clean cut and dry in itself. There are many different layers, as I say, you know, many different shades of grey, because of the fact that being a hero doesn't always go the way you want. But the other part also to this volume is, of course, Ariel and the rebels, and some of the power struggles and her interest in being like, okay, you know, I'm going to destroy all this army, and be like, oh, the hero needs to stay alive for a while. That was really cool. I was more interested in that in itself, because I just find her much more interesting. So it's like one of those things with the volume. It's like, if you don't like the hero, it's not really probably your favorite volume. It's probably my least favorite, but when Ariel came up, I was like, okay, now we're getting some interesting stuff, and seeing the politics going on with her and how she's going into this war after another war, and people aren't happy, and it's like, where are these armies coming from? Everything's just moving so quickly, and people are trying to piece together and trying to stay in good favor. It was just, it's not the worst volume, it's just not the best volume either. It's just one of those where I can understand why some people love it and some people hate it. For me, I'm kind of in the middle. I like some aspects of it, and there's some parts where I was kind of like, it's not that I hate it, I just was not as interested in it. So don't take it the wrong way, I'm not trying to hate on it, I'm just saying it's not as interesting a volume compared to the rest of the series, which has always had me hooked. So I do feel like this volume is also the calm before the storm, because now you've only got 5 more volumes, and I feel like things are going to really start escalating in the next 5 volumes. So this to me is like the calm before the storm. So I'd love to know your thoughts in the comment section down below. What did you think of this volume? Definitely looking forward to reading more of So I'm a Spider, So What? And if you like this video, hit the like, subscribe, and I'll see you beautiful nerds in the next video.